Hello students, welcome to this Introduction to Product Lifecycle Management Part 3, which is a part of Module 1. So my name is Srinivas Shinai and I am an assistant professor in the Department of Mechanical Engineering of Canara Engineering College. So let's go to the contents of this part 3. So first we will be looking at the different views of PLM, how people in an organization will view PLM in different ways. What are the who are the different kinds of people who will look at PLM in different ways if they are implemented in an organization is what we will look in the first part. And then we will look at the PLM feasibility study. So how feasibly you can apply this PLM in an organization, or is it feasible to apply this PLM is what we will study next. And then we will look at what are the various strategies for implementing PLM. So how do you implement PLM in an organization? What are the strategies that people follow in order to implement PLM in an organization is what we will see next. And then finally we will look at the various strategy elements. What are the different elements of a PLM strategy? So first going to the topic of different views of PLM, the different standpoint leads to different views. That is, the different users see PLM in different views based on their implementation possibilities. The different standpoints in the functionality of any industry will include CEO, top managers, product development managers, product support managers, engineering managers, quality managers, human resource managers, marketing managers, and application system vendors, and also the workers who work actually in the shop floor of the organization. So we will look at these various views of PLM and their perspective one by one. So going to the CEO first, implementing PLM is so important that PLM initiative should be led by the CEO. However, CEOs have other things to look at other than process mapping and the number of duplicate parts. The CEO has to set the company directions, the objectives of the companies, and the strategies and organizational structures. The CEO also needs to plan the budgets. Also, he has to lead the company and act as a figurehead for employees and shareholders and customers and make sure that sales will exceed costs. So these are some of the functions of a CEO. CEO cannot just be on the shop floor and look at how things are working there, but he needs to go through all these aspects in order to make sure that sales will exceed the costs. The CEO may have little time available for PLM initiative, so he may not be having a lot of time to look at the PLM initiative. So whatever time that is available should be focused on activities where the CEO adds most value. So whatever time is available with the CEO of the organization, he should focus on such activities which will add value to the organization. While it is important to get the CEO to lead the PLM initiative, it should be expected that CEO will get involved in all the details. So the CEO should be involving in all the details of the PLM implementation, because you cannot leave out the CEO of the organization, because he is the one who will be implementing, or he will be deciding whether it has to be implemented or not. So this could even be counterproductive, as CEOs often work with very high level abstraction of business with very little understanding of the details of the product life cycle. They'll be not understanding the small details of the product life cycle, but they'll be only working with the top level management, and hence it can also be counterproductive sometimes. Sometimes they will live in a slightly unreal world. So CEOs can also live in an unreal world and not coming into contact with people who develop, produce, or operate their products. So this can happen in an organization wherein CEO will not be directly in contact with the lower level workers who are developing the products, or maybe working with the products, or maybe operating with the machines which are there in their plant, and people who are there in the lowermost level of the organization might not come in direct contact with the PEO, with the CEO. So so it becomes a little bit unreal. The CEOs will be working in a slightly unreal world by not coming in contact with these people, and hence the PLM from CEO's view should be much more effective, but can be extracted only after demonstrating the use of PLM by their competitor and their success rate. So it is very much necessary for the CEO to be demonstrated with the competitors' use of PLM. It is necessary to demonstrate to the CEO that the competitor has used PLM and he has been successful with the usage of PLM. So if this demonstration is done, and if discussions with other high level managers are done, then there are chances that the CEO might think of implementing PLM. So if these things are not done, then I don't see any reason why why a CEO will try to implement PLM, because he lives in an unreal world, and he has his own targets, and he has his own work to be done. And I don't think PLM initiative can be initiated if all these discussions and demonstrations are not done to the CEO. So this is how a CEO is going to view an implementation of PLM. So next, going to business planners. So a business planner is basically people who deal with the business functions. So a PLM initiative will cost a lot of money and should bring in a lot of benefits. So if you want to implement PLM in an organization, it is not that easy. It will cost a lot of money, and a lot of initiatives need to be taken. So with these characteristics, um, it will have to be included in the company budgets and investment plans. So full implementation of PLM will take a lot of years, and it will affect a lot of people and the way in which people function. So it's going to take a lot of time and effort and money in order to implement PLM in an organization. And since money and cost is involved, business, it is very much necessary to include this PLM plan in the budget and the investment plans. So that is why business planners will play a major role here. So implementation of PLM needs better support from people who look after uh, the business plans. So people who are looking after the business plans, people who are involved in the economics, people who are involved in the finances, in costing. So these are the ones who should be kept in loop, and they should be the people who will be actually supporting this PLM. The business planners are meant to look after the figures and facts, and they have their ways of influencing decisions on proposed activities. So business planners will always be looking at the figures and numbers and the estimated costs. So, and they have their own way of influencing the top level management. So it is very much necessary to include business planners. They may have little hands-on experience of what happens throughout the product life cycle, so it is unlikely that they will instinctively support PLM. Now, since these business planners are not actually working in the field, or they are not actually working in the shop floor, they might not have the real idea about how it will benefit an organization, how PLM will work, or it will happen in the product life cycle. So it is unlikely that they will directly or immediately support PLM. So it may be very well be that their only job in the company will have been a staff job. They may have little real experience of what happens in the product life cycle, who are the customers, what the products are, or the processes that a product goes through from its conception to its use by a customer. All these aspects they will not be knowing. They'll be looking at an organization only from the business point of view, and they'll not be looking at the organization from all these views. So that is why instead they may have a spreadsheet view of the company. They may look at the company overall, where the costs are there, or the sales are there, or some market share figures are there, or some market growth figures are there, or some tax rates are there. So wherever there is a sales or market figures or shares or market growth or tax rates or costs or finances or economics are involved, that is where business planners will be uh, putting their head a lot of time into, and they'll not be breaking their head into how the product goes or how the product moves throughout the life cycle, and how PLM can be implemented in the life cycle. So it is very much necessary to make them understand this, and make this PLM initiative a part of the budget and the investment plans, because since it involves a lot of money. So this is how business planner will view PLM. So next, going to the functional managers. Functional managers work in the real world. They are expected to produce instant results. Now these managers are the ones who will be actually working in the real world situation in the shop floor, and they are expected to produce instant results. We need instant results from functional managers who are working on the shop floor. They may not show interest in the long term prospects as they are busy in achieving their day to day targets set by the CEO. So as a functional manager, they will have their day-to-day targets which are being set, and and they are busy with the improving or increasing their day-to-day targets, or meeting their day-to-day demands, and hence implementing PLM may not be in their mind. They may not show interest in its long term prospects as they are busy in achieving day to day targets set by the CEO. So that is why functional managers need not immediately show interest in long term prospects. Managers running a functional department such as engineering or manufacturing, they live in the real world and are expected to produce instant results. As a result, they may not show much interest in the benefits of PLM that may appear in the successive years. So whatever benefits this PLM will show, these managers may not be able to show instant approval or so much interest in it. They are often busy working on day-to-day problems to meet their short-term targets set by their CEOs. They'll be very busy in achieving their short-term targets that are set by their CEOs, that they cannot get involved in their long-term issues. So as a result, each may react differently to the proposal of PLM. So each functional manager may react differently to the implementation of or the proposal of the PLM, and each one may be only looking for benefits in their particular function. So if my area or my department is benefited, I will think about it. I am not bothered, or I don't care about what others are doing and what others are implementing. That kind of a attitude will be there among these functional managers who are just busy in achieving their day-to-day targets. So this is how functional managers will be viewing PLM. So next comes marketing managers. Now these marketing managers will react positively to the implementation of PLM. Now the reason why they will positively react is it will provide them new reason to identify more finely segmented markets, or more finely segmented niche markets, and imagine corresponding products. It is very easy for marketing managers to identify more finely segmented markets, to identify new users of their products, and hence they will readily accept PLM. PLM can help marketing managers make sure better and faster responses are made to request for proposal, or for material from successful proposals is reused, and proposals are priced realistically and competitively. So it will become very easy for marketing managers to get faster responses when it comes to request for proposals, or when it comes to feedback from the market, or or feedback from the customers, and they can customize their products as per the demands of the customers and evaluate the future opportunities very easily. So that becomes very easy for them. It is much with the product data that is available and customer specification information already available with the marketing managers. It will be easy for them to evaluate what is going to happen, or what might be the future opportunities in the for that particular product. So manufacturing managers will so these marketing managers will definitely react positively to the implementation of PLM. Next comes the manufacturing managers. Now these manufacturing managers will also react positively to the PLM initiative, and the reason is PLM can help manufacturing operate very effectively. So manufacturing managers will claim they have been set objectives of reducing costs and improving manufacturing productivity, and cannot see how these targets can be achieved by PLM. So uh, there may be different views of manufacturing managers. Some of them might feel that it will benefit them if PLM is implemented, and they can operate the manufacturing very easily, and some of them will feel that they have been set objectives of reducing the cost and improving manufacturing productivity, and cannot see how this can be improved by implementing PLM. So according to manufacturing managers, PLM should be the responsibility of design engineers who create the products. So this is what the manufacturing managers might feel. They might feel that it is the responsibility of the design engineers who create the products. In private, of course, the manufacturing managers will agree that anything that gives some control over the design engineers and product data must be a good thing. So in general, they might have a good opinion about PLM if it gives a better control of the products, but outrightly or immediately they might not accept PLM. So PLM can help manufacturing operate more effectively by increasingly involved in product development activities. So people can be more involved in product development activities, and that is where manufacturing managers will get some control over the design engineers, and advising against difficult to manufacture designs, and reducing scrap and rework. So as a functional manager, or as a manufacturing manager, you can get more control over the design engineering department by giving suggestions to them, by advising them against difficult to manufacture designs. Now there will be some instances where design engineering people will not contact the manufacturing people at all, and they will be doing their designs. So once this design is finalized and once it goes to the shop floor for actual manufacturing, there the manufacturing managers will face problems in manufacturing the components, because they had not been consulted when the design was done. So by implementing PLM, there are chances that manufacturing managers can also sit together along with the design managers and design engineers and decide how best to design a product based on how easily it can be manufactured. So these manufacturing people can also give their advice to the design people in order to reduce the number of rework, in order to reduce the number of scrap, and to reduce the errors in manufacturing. So if this kind of a positive feeling comes in manufacturing managers, then definitely yes, they will react uh, positively to the PLM initiative. And there are workers and vendors who will be part of this organization. So their view is also very much necessary. So many of the workers in the life cycle are highly educated, they are well trained, but they are underutilized, under respected, and underpaid. For a lot of years, if working in their organization, they do their job well and see very little reward. So these are the actual workers who are working in the organization, who have been constantly working in the organization for a very long time, and they have been doing their job well and see very little reward. Whereas other people rise rapidly up the company hierarchy, these workers will stay wherever they are, and all other peoples will rise rapidly to their in the hierarchy to higher levels. So as functional organizations give people little chance to expand their skills horizontally by working in other departments, many workers eventually become isolated. So workers might become isolated by not getting the right opportunities in the working environment, and they become highly focused on their own skills and somewhat resentful of other departments. They might not immediately try to work along with other departments, because their skills are not being completely tapped. They become isolated. They focus highly. They get highly focused on their own skills. If they are not in marketing, they see marketing as overindulge or overpaid. They may feel that the marketing team is overpaid, or they are working overtime. And if they are not into engineering, they see engineers as uncommunicative and living in their own world. If they are not in manufacturing, they look down on manufacturing workers as often immigrants who are incapable of even making the simple product properly. So they might feel that manufacturing workers or small lower level workers are not capable of building a product properly. Across the product life cycle, the workers complain about bureaucracy and form filling. This is a common complaint that all workers will be giving, that always there will be bureaucracy, or will always there will be a lot of miscommunication, or there is a lot of clashes in the organization, and there is a lot of form filling. They feel unable to use their talents and experience to the full extent. So what these workers might feel is, they might feel that they will not be able to utilize their talent to the full extent, and experience to the full extent. For example, when product engineers had an idea that they would talk to a colleague in manufacturing to make a prototype, but they they when they go to the manufacturing managers in order to talk about this, the manufacturing managers will just leave the room and go to see a potential customers. So uh, that is what the workers might feel, that they are being ignored and they are not being given their due respect. They become stagnant over time, and hence they may not see the full benefits of implementing of the PLM. At the same time, they feel that they would take more time and money, but they are told to reduce cost or improve quality and reduce the lead times. This is the only job that the worker has to do. That is the kind of feeling that that these workers will get. And they are at the same time they are expected to fill all the forms and to meet the product development target dates in the company plan. So as an individual, requirements of different requests are different and even contradictory. Product engineers have to walk a fine tightrope. So since people have their different perspectives, these workers will definitely not be in a position to see any benefits out of this PLM. In such an environment, the people who work in the product life cycle may not be very much interested in whether or not PLM is introduced. When there is such a bad environment, if there is such a bad environment in an organization or bad thinking among the workers, then definitely they will not be interested in whether or not PLM is introduced or not, and they may understand the benefits that it can bring, but may doubt that it will ever work as suggested. So if you make them understand the benefits of PLM, yes, they may understand, but they will definitely have a doubt whether it can be implemented or not. And then finally you have vendors, application system vendors or the vendors. The vendors don't listen to the needs and only try to sell their products. So as a vendor for an organization, I might not be so much interested in trying to understand what your PLM implementation is, whether you are implementing PLM or not, or whether your organization is going to implement it or not, is what they are least bothered about. And they are just only trying to sell their products. They may not efficiently or effectively demonstrate their product. Rather, they would be interested in selling it to the customers. So even if you try to implement PLM, and even if you try to tell the benefits of PLM, they may not be readily agreeing to the implementation of PLM, and as they are just interested in selling it to the customer, selling their product to the customers. So native applicants for product development create the product record, which is stored in a centralized or distributed vault. The digital model, including options, native or step compliant format, can be viewed by team members from purchasing and marketing, like a bill of material structure, from an advanced product configurator. So digital manufacturing is enabled by interoperability across multiple platforms and shrink wrapped integrations to all leading state of the art and legacy systems. So you can have a system wherein you can have a digital model which can be utilized by all the workers in the organization. And this digital model is nothing but all your product data, all data related to the product will be stored in this digital database, and this database can be accessed by everyone in the organization, and access can be given to even the vendors. It's not necessary for a person to go to the vendor and explain everything, whereas they can just give access to the vendors to this data, and they can tell the vendors that your all your necessary data is available in this and you can access it. So if this kind of a environment is created, and if the vendor feels that yes, it is beneficial to them in order to sell their products, then yes, definitely the vendors will react positively to the implementation of PLM. So these are some of the people in the organization who will react differently to the different approaches or different implementations of PLM. So next topic that we are going to discuss is PLM feasibility study. So what exactly is meant by PLM feasibility study? So PLM feasibility study is the assessment, evaluation and analysis of potential project. So how feasible a project is, how feasibly you can do that particular project is what will be determined by a feasibility study. So a feasibility study is carried out to find out what type of approach and what level of response is appropriate for the challenges that the company faces. So if whether this project or this product is technically feasible within the estimated cost, and will it be financially profitable or not, that is what we will be that is what will be looked into in the PLM feasibility study. So basically it is an assessment and evaluation and analysis. Feasibility study is nothing but assessment, evaluation and analysis of a potential project, whether it can be profitable or not, whether it can be technically feasible or not within the estimated cost. All the analysis and assessment and evaluation of the product is called as, or a project is called as, PLM feasibility study. So feasibility study is a rational analysis of strengths and weaknesses of a project. So what are the various strengths of a project? What are the various weaknesses of a project? Analysis or analyzing the various strengths and weaknesses of a project comes under PLM feasibility study. Whether these projects can be implemented or not, whether it will generate sufficient profits or not, or whether the project is a weak project, whether it will not whether will it generate sufficient profits, or is it better to implement this or not to implement this. All these rational analysis comes under PLM feasibility study. A robust feasibility study covers these 5 prime areas. Any feasibility study which has to be robust, it has to cover these 5 prime areas. The first one is technical. So any feasibility study that an organization does must look at the technical aspects of a product or a project, whether it is technically possible to do it or not. That needs to be looked after, and without these technical aspects, it is very difficult to implement a project. Next, robust feasibility study need to cover the economical aspect as well, whether it fits within the required budgets or not, whether it will be generating the required profits or not, or when it comes to economics of a project, all aspects related to economics also need to be dealt with, or need to be studied, or need to be analyzed in order to have a successful project. Legal issues also needs to be seen. Now there are some instances where a product that is being developed, or a project that is being done, may have some legal issues in some countries. Whatever products we are developing in our country, it might have some legal issues in some other countries, or there are chances that whatever project that we are working on, that project might have already been worked by someone else somewhere in some other part of the country, and they might have patented it. Whether there are any patenting issues, or maybe any copyright issues, or maybe any intellectual property right issues, all these issues or legal issues also needs to be taken care of when a project is being rolled off, or a product is being manufactured. So uh, different countries have their own legal conditions and issues, and with respect to these legal issues, a detailed study needs to be made in order to understand whether it is under the legal scrutiny or not. Now a product or a project that we are working on, that same project might have already been carried out by someone else somewhere in the world, and they might have patented that project, or that product. Now such products, if we do not know about these details, we may blindly do the project, and we may end up in legal trouble later on. So it is very much necessary to understand what are the legal aspects of the project, study these, analyze these things, and then try to put your hand in the project. The next thing that we have to cover is the operational benefits, whether you can operate this product or not, or this project or not. What are the different supply chains that are available in order to operate this project or not. So operational aspects also needs to be taken care of, whether sufficient equipments are available in the organization, whether sufficient manpower is available, whether there is a right plan in order to implement these various operations, or whether the supply chain is in the right track in order to supply all the materials to you, and supply the finished goods to the customers. So all these aspects related to operations also needs to be studied in order to implement PLM. And the last area that needs to be focused on is scheduling. So it is very much necessary to schedule the project in the right time, in the right way. So if the scheduling is not proper, and if the project gets delayed, then there is a loss of lot of money. So scheduling plays a very important role. If a project is rolled off, if a project begins and if a lot of money is invested in a project, then it is very much necessary to understand what is the schedule of the product or a project, and make sure that this schedule is fixed and the schedule is and the target is reached. So if you do not reach your target as per the schedule, there will be a lot of loss in terms of time, effort and money. So since cost is involved, scheduling plays a major role in PLM feasibility study. Now you can take an example of a project, maybe a flyover project which has to be done in a city, and you are investing say probably 100 crores for this flyover project, and you have given a specific time duration, maybe to complete this flyover project within 1 year. So maybe such kind of a schedule if it is given, and if you are not able to live up to this particular schedule, and if you cross 1 year and go beyond 1 year in order to implement or to build this flyover, if you take maybe 2 years or 3 years, lot of effort is lost, lot of time is lost, time is wasted, and you need to bear additional costs, you need to bear additional expenses in order to maintain and in order to sustain and to build the flyover. So maintaining the schedule and reaching the target on the right track or on the right schedule is very much necessary in order to successfully implement PLM. So if these targets and schedules are not there in place, then we can incur a lot of loss in terms of time, effort and money. So these are the 5 things that a robust feasibility study need to cover. The key financial metrics for feasibility study. What are the financial metrics that you have to look for when it comes to PLM feasibility study? So these are the key financial metrics. The first is internal rate of return. So what is the internal rate of return that you are getting if you implement this project? So whatever amount you are putting, what is the rate of return that you are getting for this project is the first thing that you need to look for. The net present value, what is the present value of your project or your product? What is the net value of your product, whether it is high or whether it is low? This needs to be taken looked after. Return on investment, whatever amount you are investing in the project, whatever returns you are getting on that investment, that also needs to be looked after. It plays a very important role when it comes to financial metrics. Whatever amount you are putting into a project, are you able to recover that particular investment, or are you able to get that return in a very short period of time, is something which is of most importance. Payback period, what is the payback period? So whatever amount I am investing, in what amount of time will I be paid back with full interest, or whatever amount I have invested, what is the payback period, or what is the time duration for me to again recollect the investment that I have already invested in the project? So that payback period also plays a major role. And benefit to cost ratio, what is the benefit to cost, what is the cost that I have put for this project, and what benefits that I am getting? More the benefits, more is the benefit to cost ratio. Lesser the cost that I'm putting, more the benefits that I'm getting, then it becomes a highly beneficial and very less and highly benefit to cost ratio project. So it is very much necessary to make sure that the cost involved is less and the benefits that you're getting is more. So these are some of the financial metrics that need to be looked into when it comes to PLM feasibility study. So now that we have seen what are the PLM metrics that need to be looked into in the PLM study, we'll be now discussing the next topic, that is PLM strategies. What is meant by a strategy, and how to implement these strategies. Okay. So what is meant by a strategy? First of all, we'll look at what is called as a strategy. A strategy describes the way to achieve objectives. So how the resources will be organized or managed and used, what are the policies governing the use of management of resources, all these strategies will be looked after. A strategy is a decision to be made at present to ensure the future success of the organization. So whatever decisions that you're taking in the present scenario and how it will be ensuring the future success of the organization, that is what a strategy will do. So a strategy is nothing but a decision which is made in the present time in order to make sure that your organization will succeed in the future. Now, what are the requirements of a PLM strategy? You need to now understand what are the different or various requirements of PLM strategy. So the first requirement is you need to show how PLM will be used in the future. You need to show how this PLM can be used, how it can be beneficial in the future. That needs to be the first requirement in PLM strategy. Show how PLM resources will be organized and used. So it is very much necessary to show how the various resources of PLM will be organized and will be used in the organization. Show how to achieve PLM objectives. How these PLM objectives are achieved, that needs to be shown when it comes to PLM strategy. Describe the policies governing the use and management of PLM resources. Whatever resources are available and the way in which the PLM resources are managed, you need to describe what are the policies that are governing the usage and management of PLM resources. Now, what are the resources addressed by PLM? Now, we know that these resources need to be described and we need to understand what are the various resources addressed by PLM. The first resource addressed by PLM are people. So people form the main chunk in the organization. Without people, an organization cannot run, or it cannot function, or it cannot work. So the main resource that is addressed by PLM is first of all people. The second resource that is addressed by PLM is equipment. You need to have sufficient equipment in the organization in order to implement PLM. So equipment is the second resource that is addressed by PLM. Methods and processes. What are the various methods that the organization is following in order to implement PLM or to develop a product? What are the processes followed in order to increase the time or reduce the time to market for a product or to enhance the life cycle activities? What are the methods and processes followed is what will be addressed next by PLM. Products. What are the different types of products manufactured by the organization? What are the various product parameters and all the aspects related to products? How diverse the products are in the organization is what will be addressed by PLM in is what will be addressed by the resources. And finally, you have the product data or the information. What is the kind of data that is being generated, and what is the information that is generated with respect to a product? So when a product passes through the life cycle of the organization of life cycle of the product, what is the data that is being generated, and what is the information that is being generated? So these are some of the resources which are addressed by PLM, because PLM will be implemented or initiated keeping in mind all these resources. When it comes to people, when it comes to equipment, methods and processes, products and product data and information, these are the key areas or key resources where PLM will have a direct impact. So implementing PLM will have a direct impact on all these resources, and that is the reason why it is very much necessary to address all these resources when it comes to implementing the PLM strategies. So the next topic that we are going to discuss is strategy elements. Now that we have understood what is called as a strategy and what is meant by a strategy, what are the various aspects of strategy, what are the various resources that need to be seen by PLM, all these things we have understood, and now we will look at the strategy elements. So basically there are three elements in a strategy, or the plan of action for bridging the gap between the reality of today and vision of tomorrow. There are three basic processes or three basic aspects. The first is people, the second is process, and the third is technology. If you look at the overall elements that are a part of PLM strategy, they are a vision of the future. You should first of all have a vision for the future. You should know what exactly your product is, where exactly your product is going to be positioned, how exactly it is to be manufactured, what kind of changes it needs and how it needs to change with respect to the change in technology, and there should be a very clear vision of the future. So this is the first element for any PLM strategy. The second is the realistic assessment of where we are today. It is not just sufficient if we plan for the future or have a very nice vision for the future. We should also understand where exactly we are standing today. If we do not understand or do not know our position right now, it is very difficult for us to judge where we will reach, right? So if we do not know our capabilities, or if we do not know where we stand right now, it is very difficult to predict what is going to happen in the future. So a realistic assessment, there should be an assessment which can be realistic enough to tell where exactly we are standing right now. So once that is understood, we can have a very clear picture or very clear vision of what the future is going to be. The next is plan for bridging the gap. So plan of action for bridging the gap between the reality of today and the vision of future. This becomes a very important point here. That is what I mentioned. The three most important things that we need to look into the strategy elements are people, process, and technology. So now that we have assessed where exactly we are standing in the present scenario, and we have predicted what is going to happen in the future, or what is the strategy in order to bring out newer products in the future, what is the strategy for the organization to grow in the future. Now that we have a vision and we have assessed where we are standing right now, it is very much necessary to bridge the gap. There will always be a gap between where we are right now and where we want to go in the future. So in the future, the technology will change, the working culture will change, working aspects will change, environment will change, functionalities will change, people will also change, and a lot of aspects will change. So when such a change occurs, there will definitely be a gap between where we are right now and what changes will occur in the future. So in order to tap this gap, in order to bridge this gap of where we are right now and where we need to reach in the future, there are three aspects that need to be taken care of. The first is people, the second is process, and the third is technology. So people need to be ready in order to understand what the future will look like. We need to build our processes in such a way that we will be bridging the gap between the reality of today and the vision of tomorrow, and we should have sufficient technology so that we can even work in the future. And once this plan of action is done, next we need to have the capabilities and resources necessary to carry out the plan. Now it is not sufficient if you just have a plan of action in order to meet the requirements of the future. You need to also have the required capabilities and resources. You need to have the required people with sufficient knowledge. You need to have people with the right skills. You need to have people with that futuristic mind. You need to have resources in the form of equipments. You need to adopt new technologies in your organization. You need to implement new systems in your organization. You need to implement new softwares. You need to go to the digital world. You need to enhance or improve your capabilities and your physical resources which are there in the organization in order to carry out this plan. So it is very much necessary to visualize the future, analyze where you are right now, and plan an action plan in order to bridge these two vision of future and the present situation. In order to bridge the gap, you need to plan an action on the people, on the processes, and on the technology, and you need to make sure that you have the necessary capabilities and the resources in order to carry out this plan. So strategy elements can be described in an exhaustive detail. Now, whatever elements that we have discussed, it can be described in a very exhaustive way, in a very brief way, or a very detailed way. So some of the key points that I would like to discuss here is customer involvement. So customer involved in the product development and support team. So what is the kind of customer involvement that we are talking about when it comes to product development? Frequent communication with the customers. When it comes to customer involvement, we need to continuously communicate with the customers in order to know their requirements. In-depth customer surveys. It is very much necessary to have in-depth customer surveys so that the exact requirements and the market study can be effectively done. Specifications negotiated and optimized with the customers. It's not always true that we take whatever information customers gives. So customers might give good ideas, or they might give bad ideas, or they might give ideas which may not be feasible. So it is very much necessary to sit along with the customers and negotiate these specifications. Development and support work on customer sites. So even it is necessary to develop and support the products or the projects or the work on the customer sites. Even we can think of going to other countries where our customers are there and think of developing or providing the support or the service to the customers. RFID integrated into the product. We can also think of integrating radio frequency identification devices into the product in order to involve more customers. Online feedback from customer use. Once a customer uses a product, it is essential for the marketing managers to take a feedback from the customers. So you can think of having an online feedback form from the customers, so that it can you can get the real time and easy, you can get the feedback in a very detailed and an easy way. The second thing that I would like to discuss here is customization capability. So perceived by customers as excellent at customization. It is very much essential or beneficial if you can give customized products to the customers. Able to identify customization requirements quickly. So you can very quickly identify what are the customization requirements from the customers. Able to identify customization requirements correctly. So whatever customization is told by the customer, you will be able to identify it correctly. Able to carry out requested customization quickly. So it is not just enough if you identify what are the requirements of the customers. You should be able to quickly carry out the request that is generated by the customers. Next thing, next key point I would like to discuss here is the most robust product or service. So product has long mean time between failure. It is necessary to make sure that your product has a long mean time between failure. Now a product might fail once it goes to the customer's hand, and then you might repair or give a service or maintenance to that product. And the next time that the product fails, the second time that the product fails, the time duration between the first failure and the second failure, it should be as long as possible, so that the customer will have a sense of fulfillment or satisfaction that yes, I have bought a product worth to the price that I have paid. Product requires little maintenance. You have to make sure that your product will need very little maintenance, and that is where you need to do extensive simulation and testing. So you need to go for a lot of simulation and testing in order to make sure that the product comes out as a very nice product with very less maintenance. Simple product or service with small number of parts. So the more the number of parts, the more complicated the product becomes. So it is necessary to give simple products with very less number of parts. You can also think of having product certifications demonstrating the robustness of the product, how robust the product is, how effectively you can use the product, how the product will come under the less maintenance category. So you can think of having some kind of a certification which will demonstrate the robustness of the product. The best process. Now, what are the best processes that you follow in the organization? Focus on implementing the best development process and methodology. Able to do the tasks well. You should be able to do the tasks well. Customer belief in process competence. Customer should have a sense of belief in the kind of competence that is there in the process that is being followed. Process certification. The process that is followed in the organization needs to be certified so that the customers can have a sense of belief in the organization. Customization capability. Projects started early with upfront effort profile. So you need to start your projects early so that you can have an upfront gain in the life cycle of the project. Information shared as early as possible. So the moment you start your project early, you can share the information early and you can try to get more and more customers. Simulation rather than test. You can think of simulating doing the simulation rather than actually testing it, so that you will get real-time data about the or the analysis of the product, and you can save a lot of time here. Information can be reused. Instead of again generating new information, you can reuse the existing information. Longest life product. You can also think of a product which has a very long life. So you can think of having a modular design instead of having individual design for individual tasks. You can think of having a modular design by implementing more number of parameters or more number of functionalities in a product, easy to upgrade. You can think of having projects or products which can be easily upgradable. You can give some add-on services or additional services which will benefit the customers. Also, you can think of having environmental friendly products where you can think of sustainable development or non-polluting products which are giving out less pollution can be thought of. Reusing of the products, you can think of reusing products. If a product ends its nears the end of its life cycle, you can think of reusing that particular product again, so that you can increase the value of the product. The ultimate aim of any organization is to give value to the products that they have produced, and ultimately if you can reuse your product, it will definitely enhance or improve the value of the product. So this is all about strategies and developing a PLM strategy. So the other aspects of PLM will be discussed in the next video. Thank you.